I'm Justin Lowder here with Cascade Sports Network, and going to have a little bit of conversation here with new Cascade High School wrestling coach Spencer Crawford. Spencer, it's good to be talking with you.
Good to be talking with you too. Thanks for coming over today, by the way. We are in Salem doing a podcast, in home, a house podcast, and there's nothing better than having two Cascade alumni here. You, one of them, myself, and this is going to be an awesome interview, but just hang out time.
Yeah, and we were talking a little bit before this that it's really awesome to have Cascade's such a close-knit community. I'm sure there's other schools, smaller schools, rural schools that are the same, but when you're part of something and then you see other people, they want to come back, and whether it's teaching like I am or coaching like I was before, and now you've been involved in coaching with wrestling before in an assistant role, and now you're kind of the head coach there. What does that mean to you to come back as the head coach?
Man, it's kind of cool. It's one of those reflection moments, and it's really digesting and seeing like how other programs do things. For instance, when I first came back, I look around and you don't want to be too young as a coach because then there's that respect issue. And I'm sure you went through that. I mean, for instance, I'm a 7th grade basketball player. You're probably fresh out of high school. And I remember you as my assistant head coach. It was you and assistant principal. What's his name? I'm blanking on him.
Tyler Woodrow.
So it's those instances where Cascade has that just familiarity and that culture to bring guys back in. And when I first came back, I just looked around to other programs, especially in the wrestling side, because that's my world. And like Sweet Home, for instance, there's a reason why these programs, wrestling-wise, is so strong. They're bringing guys back in that were college ex-wrestlers, but also alumni. And you don't have to be a college wrestler to come back into the room, by the way. I want to open up these doors to ex-alumni athletes that wrestled at Cascade, participated, because there's nothing better than having the best room in the state, but people involved that have a passion for the sport. And I'm really big on passion, because if we're not all bought in, man, we're going to kind of struggle at first. And until we get that culture started, that's all I want. I want people to be involved, step up, raise a hand, and say, Spencer, how can I help you? Because let's get real. Being a head coach at a high school program sometimes can be intimidating, but you need more help. More help, the better, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you kind of alluded to, you don't have to be a college wrestler, to come back and participate, but you do have a college wrestler coming back and helping you here in the program, and your brother, in fact.
I do. And, there's no one better than an ex-D1 athlete, I would say. At the college level, wrestling-wise, I think that's as high as you can get, besides if you want to go to Worlds and be an Olympian, because that's a completely different style of wrestling. You got freestyle and Greco. We in America, USA, we are the only country to wrestle collegiate wrestling style. And that at the highest level is Division I NCAA wrestling. And Cody, my brother, got to experience that. Cascade alumni, graduated in 2012. And he's a 3-time state champion, moved on to Corvallis, and he lived his dream. And he's now getting to come back and give back to the sport, which we both love. And what better way to have a partner in crime, right? Your brother side by side in a coaching chair with you, but also in the room. It's a really fun presence to have. And that's what I'm talking about, bringing guys in that know the sport, are encouraging, have that passion, and then ultimately wants to help the kids, because at the end, our glory's gone. Nothing we do matters anymore. We can have our credentials, we can have that list of things, but ultimately it's our job now to share that with the kids and expose them to this wrestling world that they've raised their hand and signed up and wanted to be in, and get them better and make the best program we can for the state of Oregon.
Yeah, 100%. And, don't want to gloss over the fact that Jason Lovell, who just stepped down. That's another one. Yeah, is also Cascade alum, and had a large presence in the wrestling world too. He was the head coach for quite a while, several years. In fact, I know it was a little bit unexpected-ish. That
absolutely it was.
It ended right now. I had a conversation with him a couple of years ago that he was planning on. I mean, he had an end date when his youngest son was done wrestling, and that was going to be when he was done coaching. And so when I had seen, because I'm kind of weird, I get on the Cascade website and see the employment opportunities. That's a majority of the time where I figure out.
See, and I've never done that.
Gone.
That was new to me. I'm not looking up employment opportunities. I run my own business, and the employment world is kind of new to me. The 9 to 5, I've never really been a part of it, and this is something that's eye-opening. But like you mentioned, though, checking just the website, even that's new. That's kind of fun to me.
And that's how, I'll text my, social studies teacher. So I'll text the department and be like, hey, did you see the job opening that was up there? And, we had a science teacher leave, and that was kind of up in the air. But then when we see the job posting, that's when it's official. Mm-hmm. But then who you're, expecting to welcome back. We'll be back in the classroom here in a little less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, what's the starting date for school?
So freshmen come the day after Labor Day, and then everyone starts that next Wednesday.
So it's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up. And, summer always seems to happen that way. It's the end of June, early July, and you're like, oh man, I got so much time. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it's the middle of August, and you're like, oh wow, I go back to work in a week and a half to start preparing for the next year. And so,
right.
It's great, and it's a change. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you and your wife are realtors. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of go from, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, you kind of make your own schedule and you can build it how you want.
Yeah.
And now starting in November, you'll have to block out the old after school 3:30 to whenever to have that structure.
And that's kind of honestly what we're figuring out right now, is because I'm really big on time blocking. And if I'm not a teacher, right, present in the school 9 to 5, whatever the hours are of the day, then I have to make sure I'm a presence in the school. And that is one of my big priorities that I'm needing to do. I'm big on the follow-up, and I hold that as accountability for our athletes. So I will be a really heavy presence in the school, whether it's during school, pulling kids out, talking 3 days a week, and then I have another assistant staff doing more accountability work for the athletes. I think that is gold. And because that's more relational than anything. And so that was like a concern, though, from maybe through the interview process, is how are you going to be a presence in the school? And I completely understand that. But ultimately, I time block, I time manage, and it's going to be amazing. And it's even going to be better than it's ever been because of the relationship side that I'm able to understand with our athletes and hold them accountable, but ultimately make sure like they're taken care of in life-wise. Because at the end of the day, we all play sports. If you're an athlete, that's amazing. But life goes on. And that's kind of what I've gotten to experience after high school, especially, is after making the choice to not follow in my brother's footsteps and wrestle at Oregon State, is life goes on. And now you can really get that identity side. And I just think kids, they're in a very vulnerable spot at times. And when we can really speak life into them and just say, how can I be there for you? And you don't even have to talk a lot of the time. Let them talk. And it's not that we're taking the role as the professional counselor in the school, but we are in the best position ever to be mentors for the kids. And that is what excites me almost more than the wrestling portion, is the actual being for my athlete. And that's the life side. Yes, we have athletes, but how can I make you a better person and ultimately have a better experience after high school?
Well, 100%. And, there's going to be, as coaches, as because you've been in the coaching world and I've been in the coaching world, mm-hmm. You experience a different side of these kids. I won't say it's not every kid, mm-hmm. but a lot of times it's, I go to school because I have to.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I have a moniker as the teacher, obviously, as all my colleagues do. And sometimes even that's enough to be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a little guarded, or maybe that's my personality. But then when you have kids who sign up and want to be in these extracurricular, do these extracurricular opportunities, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. you get to experience a different part of their personality and a different part of their world where then they can open up. And, they're the ones that are, you build that relationship. Absolutely. Like you said.
Yeah. And not a lot of people, if you haven't been a part of the coaching world, you're kind of like on the outside boundary. Like, take it as a parent, for instance. You know, there's a lot of hours out of the day. I mean, your kid, they're dropped off at 8 a.m., right? You go to work, they're in a sport after school till 5:30, 6 p.m. Do you realize how many hours out of the day that is without ever even talking or seeing your kid? And this is happening, by the way, 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. You really got to make sure it's clear who your kids are around, the teachers, the administration, the coaches that you're involved with. And that is what's really exciting and important to me. And that's why it's amazing to even be on this broadcast with you, Cascade Sports Network. This is one of those things where if you are a community member and you're listening to this, this is what you're going to be getting. This is what you're receiving. And it comes back to being that Cascade alumni, that Cascade generation. Yes, my brother was 2012. I was 2015. We're in 2024 now. Really excited for the future. But we're able to bring those roots that you and I got to grow up with and keep it how, you know, in a way our parents had or what we have been taught. And I feel like a lot of us are losing that as we go into 2024 in the future. I mean, we have AI assistants. You know, I use AI for my businesses. I can't possibly contact 2,000 plus people a day. My assistant's going to get on it, capture leads, and ultimately continue on the conversation for when someone, for instance, is ready to buy a house. And that's what's really important, though, when we understand the psychology side of being a coach and even being an athlete. How can I bring myself to a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid and be as effective as possible, because that is what's going to build your program the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we've kind of seen, at least I've seen, you know, social media wise, you know, actually starting tomorrow, you'll be hosting a wrestling clinic for intermediate and advanced wrestlers. Cascade wrestlers are free. There's a small fee if the wrestler's out of district. But then I saw yesterday, you know, there's just a lot of equipment that can be, again, purchased for a small fee to kind of, you know, help those perhaps younger, maybe even older into wrestling.
Yeah. And, you know, I related it in this way. My daughter, for instance, I have a 3.5-year-old daughter. Her name's Astrid. She's beautiful, Norwegian. My wife, a beautiful Norwegian. And I have to take her to classes. I don't have to, I get to. I'm going to rephrase that. I get to take her to a ballet dance class because she really loves to dance. But there was a fee for the class, obviously. It didn't come with gear. I had to pay for ballet shoes, the get-up, whatever they're called, the leotard, if you will. A lot of people call technical wrestling terms. Singlets the leotard. And so when I took over this job, there was so much gear in our cabinets that I almost didn't even know what to do with. And that's a lot of money, right? But ultimately, it's we need to sell it and get money back, but also just get kids gear. And when you have a pride of ownership of something, that ownership, because my daughter, she loves putting on this ballet suit, and now she knows it's time to go to ballet class. So it's like that sense of, all right, it's like putting on your football helmet when it's time to go play, right? Yep. So if you are going to be attending that camp, we are going to be selling youth singlets. These are all youth sizes. I'd say up to about 12-year-olds can fit these singlets. Extra small, XX small, medium, large, XL. So they're brand new basically, and they're Cascade Kids Club singlets. They are up for purchase, $35, only $35. So they're usually about 50 to 75, depending on where you buy them from. These are damaged ear gear, great gear. And then we do have fight shorts. This is also a damaged ear brand, and these fight shorts are only $25, and they're really cool. They're confident and comfortable, and they show off Cascade pride, Cascade Cougar Wrestling. So the more people out there that come and grab this gear, think about it. We're on a Saturday tournament as a club, and everybody's wearing our gear. Who's that team? Oh, by the way, we're all in the finals. Who are these guys? We're just going to keep attracting athletes and wrestlers and have that uniform of unity, because Cascade culture is back, baby. Black attack. And it's going to be really fun building that. And we have a few pair of extra shoes, $5 a pair, and come and see if you got a size that fits you. The camp will be August 16th through 18th. I'm not sure if this podcast will be out by then, but August 16th through 18th, 6:30 to 8 p.m. It's an hour and a half evening clinic lesson from Cody Crawford himself. And I said, Cody, what do you want to share? What do you want to show? And he says, why not just show our best? And I said, oh, well, okay, let's do it. Because honestly, when we look at it, there's only 4 moves that you really, really, really know. I can hit any move or one move on anybody. And I know I can do that one move and do it very well. So that's what you're going to be getting out of Cody. We're going to do feet wrestling, top wrestling, and bottom wrestling each night. And if you don't have a partner, I highly suggest if you are attending this camp, you bring somebody with you so you know you have a workout partner. Because it's always hard going to a new room, new space, not knowing somebody. What do you do? So bring a partner with you. It'll make your experience a little bit better.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say, I mean, from a multitude of perspectives, but, you know, from the teacher perspective, from the Cascade community perspective, from, you know, just a person who lives in the district, you know, when I see programs and I see people who truly care and they want, you know, what's best for the program, what's best for the kids, you know, all these things is awesome. And, you know, that's what when I had seen that you got the job, you know, I've known you for a long time, right, from, you know, back in the high school days. And, you know, I know you have that passion, you have that energy, and we kind of talked about it earlier, but, you know, you talk about, you know, districts look at hiring teachers. Obviously, that's, you know, where the teaching happens, but sometimes you look for, well, can the teacher also coach? Because I think you kind of hinted at it, you know, planning on being a presence, because, you know, it is, depending on your outside job, it is kind of difficult to, you know, make those and really maintain those connections when you're not in season.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, the energy and the passion is awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, what's cool is I've actually already brought in my personal programs that I pay for personally. That's fine. But this is ultimately to better communicate with parents and athletes. For instance, we're in the summertime, right? And I'm just going to brag about the program real quick.
Please do.
We just brought our mats out of the wrestling room, sat them in the main gym for about 3 weeks. It was a little longer than expected. But moving the mats, for instance, is a very big challenge. These mats are not light by any means. And so how do you get people to the school to help and involvement? Well, I sent out a text message, because now I can, through my system, text individuals in one mass text, but make it personalized. Like I mentioned, I have an AI assistant. I could have her do it for me if I really wanted to. All I need is a phone number, email, and full name. And what happened? We had 15 athletes every time. So we had a Sunday evening at 5 p.m. I asked them, hey, guys, I need your help. How can you come in and help? Well, I need them there at 5 p.m. Everybody showed up. I had 15 athletes in August show up. And honestly, that's just been really hard to do from year to year. And we've been hosting wrestler parties, pool parties. We had an awesome event in the late of July. And there's just little things like that will create more, I guess, atmosphere, but culture and teamship, if you will, for these athletes to just feel confident and comfortable with each other. Because in the wintertime, I think you can attest to this one. We got the time change. It gets dark at 4:30 p.m. And, you know, you're like in a wrestling room. There's very little exterior lights in a wrestling room. It's not a fun place to be, if I can be honest. You got to be crazy if you want to be a wrestler. But those are the guys I want. Seriously, you got to want to work hard. You want to get that hand raised. There's no better feeling than going out there and kicking tail for 6 minutes in a circle that has perimeter rules, of course, but you can go out and beat the dog out of somebody. Honestly, there's no other sport, and that's how I can compare it. It's a gladiator sport. And being a man, I mean, it's a little different, but we can just go for it. And there's a switch in us, if you will. And I'm really just happy with how our athletes have been showing up lately. And then on top of that, our parents. I mean, like I mentioned, a coach is a coach, right? But we need more help. We need as much help as we can get. And if the parents are involved, that is a real successful program. If you have 40, 50 athletes in your wrestling room at the high school level, and you get only 10, 15 parents, I would consider that a success. Do you know how helpful it is for when we're running a tournament for that hospitality room to be full of food? Do you know how helpful it is for the concession stand to be fully run and I'm not having to poke my head in there and do managing? I got coaching I got to do. So there's all these simple roles that parents can play, and that is on the sheet to do. I'm looking to have amazing parent meetings preseason, not during season, but preseason, so we can get the job done and have the signups already made. So there's little adjustments like that I think people are just really going to be happy with just being involved, because I know people crave that. And what I've learned through my job and experience is if you don't ask, you don't receive. It comes to that principle. Okay. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. And if you don't ask, you don't receive. And I'm going to ask for help. And if somebody can step up and do it, that's a blessing, and I'm going to take it. So we want people involved, and I want the doors open.
Yeah. And, I kind of chuckled in my head a little bit when you were talking about, running tournaments and concessions. You don't have to poke your head in there because, I helped coach the girls basketball program with Mark Stevens. So shout out to Mark Stevens.
Basketball program. Come on, that's amazing.
Yeah, and one of my tasks as whether I was an assistant with him or one of the JV2 coaches was to essentially help run the holiday tournament. And involvement, especially in those types of things, is huge. And so I know why he wanted someone else to run that, and it made a lot of sense. So when you have good involvement, which stems from communication and all those things, that's a lot of the success of a program. It's not even on the mat.
Yeah.
All those 100%. Things kind of build up to the mat.
Yeah.
And do it that way.
You can agree with this statement or disagree, but growing up, I heard it all phase because I was a club guy. I wrestled at all phase under Kevin Keeney, Chael Sonnen, and Lloyd Higlin, the OGs of all phase. Shout out to you guys. But there was this quote that, it'll always stay in your mind. It says, 90% of success is just showing up. I don't know if you've ever heard that. It sounds ridiculous, but honestly, if you break it down into brass tacks, 90% of success is just showing up. And especially in our sport, the wrestling world, a lot of it's mental. You get into an environment and you could be the best athlete in the world. And that's why I say you show up and you give yourself 6 minutes in a circle, dance for 6 minutes. What'll happen at the end could surprise you. You could be less of an athlete than the other guy you're across from, or more as an athlete. You can still lose. You can still win on any given day. And if you show up, 90% of success is just showing up. So you got to realize the mental side of how big it is to just be involved. Because, the 10%, you put in the work, you practice 2 hours a day, you hit another practice 3 days a week, that's wrestling. You got to get as much workouts as you can because you have to hit reps. I was listening to a podcast yesterday about shooting a bow and arrow, right? And you literally, if you want to be a good archer and marksman, you got to shoot this bow hundreds and hundreds and thousands of times to get as accurate as you can. And if you want to be good at a wide variety of bow and arrows, man, you're putting in practice literally every day for hours a day at your own shooting range, at your house. So go buy some acreage and make your own shooting range if you want to be the best at bow and arrow hunting. But my point is you need reps. You need reps. And being a coach, I get an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for 2.5 months with athletes. And that's not even doing our high school tournaments. We got to find an extra practice. And like I mentioned earlier, I was a club guy as well. I did it all. I wrestled Sundays through Thursdays at club on top of junior high school practices. And there was just a point in my life where that was normal. And it might look and feel hard at first. It always is. It's like going to practice in football. Football's in daily doubles right now. If you're not a football player, go sign up, be a football player. You're going to be a better wrestler for it, and you're going to be under one of the best coaching staffs in the state. Shane Hedrick and his staff, I've been seeing them in the background. They are doing a terrific job. So if you don't play football, go talk to the coach and raise your hand and say, how can I be on your team? How can I help? And go earn your spot. Nothing is given. Go earn it. But ultimately, what I was saying was I forgot what I'm saying. I just promoted football.
You did. But I mean, hey, that was great, because that's one of the things too that, being around in the Cascade coaching sphere, a lot of the varsity head coaches are all about, play more than one sport. You don't specialize. Yeah. Because there are those skills and things that maybe don't 100% translate, but they can translate 50%, 70%, 80%. Totally. And again, kind of like your quote you were saying, 90% is showing up. It's kind of like school, right? Not everyone likes math. Not everyone likes English. Not everyone likes writing. Okay, but you spend a considerable amount of your hours that you're awake at school. And then not to mention you're throwing in additional hours if you're in sports or extracurricular activities. Yeah. So it's one thing to be there physically, but you were saying also just being there mentally too, and being just present. And, how can this make me better? If it's not, the study of the Constitution and U.S. history, maybe the studying of the Constitution itself doesn't make you personally better, but what can you take from that that's going to improve? Is it, I need to stay awake in this class? Or, hey, I have, these missing assignments. It's the same thing with sports. What can I do to better myself? Yeah. And you usually start with big picture things, and then you work yourself into details later on. And that's just how life is. Totally. I mean, you can speak, true. I can speak. I mean, it's like you have things and things go wrong in your life, and it's great. I get to teach high school, and I was coaching high school, and now you're in the high school, now you have the head coach, and then your kids are seniors, and it's like, all right, have a good one. And you're just kind of thrown out into the real world. You're like, the ocean. Man, I hope you learned something in the 4 years you were here. Right. But a lot of those, not everyone's a college person. Not everyone's going to have a school schedule afterwards. But those intangible things that you can learn in school, but especially through extracurricular activities like sports, those are really what make you successful.
Yeah. And in my life, I can attest to that. You were a 3-sport athlete, right?
Yeah.
Or just 2? 3?
Oh, I was 2.
Okay, yeah. You were 2. Football and basketball?
No, actually, I didn't play football.
You didn't?
I did not.
You turkey.
I played basketball in the falls, a warm-up to basketball in the winter, and then I actually did golf for 3 years, and then I did track my senior year. Okay. So I was not a football player.
How did you not play football? I thought you did. Your younger brother did, though.
My younger brother did.
That's the Lowder that I remember out there then. Well, I mean, because we can attest to that, though. There's school side, but then there's the sports side, the athletic side. You have the coach is the mentor. You have your peers you're involved with. I mean, what I love about being an ex-alumni from Cascade is how I can still to this day, and I just did it 2 weeks ago, is I got to call up the state championship team. There's a few guys on that poster. It's still in the room. In 2012, we won a state championship for the wrestling team. And like I said, I want to open up the doors, right? So there's a few guys that are still around that I heavily want involved with the program. But like you mentioned, everybody works. And so when you're building a coaching staff and it's not a teacher-employed person, now we really have to be flexible with schedules here. And honestly, I'm just like, come in 1-2 days a week. How can we get experience for our athletes through you? Because wrestling's a weird sport. You can physically wrestle these individuals that are in the room as a coach. And that's the case for every program. Any college you walk into, you have an assistant coach wrestling with the athletes. They bring in head assistants just for the wrestling portion. And that's very normal in our world. And that's what I'm looking to do. I have at least 4 to 5 guys coming in routinely 5 days a week to wrestle with our athletes. And on top of that, we're working with the junior high, building that program. We just remodeled that room last year. We just recut the mats in the main high school room. Our room is dialed. Like I said, we have the best facility, I believe, in the state. It is top notch, all the way from our team room to the main gym where we can roll out mats and wrestle 6 minutes under a light in front of a home crowd that's going to be roaring, saying "Go Cougs," Cougar Pride, and the Cougar Den. But I think I remember what I was talking about, though, earlier. I'm going to bring up that point again.
Please do.
So as a wrestler, we always need more reps. We always need more time. And so, like I was mentioning, you need to be involved with another exterior club, whether it's Cascade's Kids Club. Honestly, it doesn't have the practice partners for the high school level quite yet. But we're bringing that in and we're making adjustments. And hopefully we can bring in a very close college that's located right here in Salem to the Cascade Wrestling Room. So that's in the works, by the way. So stay tuned for that one.
That's cool.
And that's all for the Valley kids. Our whole Valley, if you are a high school athlete, keep your eyes open. You could have a beautiful, beautiful workout one day a week with other successful college athletes. But we need more reps. So if you aren't involved with a club quite yet, and you're not involved with Cascade's Kids Club, maybe that's just not your thing, there are other clubs that you can reach out to if you need help assessing, hey, Spencer, where should I go? Coach, where do you think a good fit for me would be? I am very connected with most of the elite clubs here in Oregon. That wrestling world, that's my world, and I'm involved with that. So if that's you, please reach out to me. I have an email posted. I'll actually post that in the link below of this video so you can have some type of contact info for me, and we can talk that out so I can tell you where I think you should be going, because wrestling doesn't start just in November. This is honestly a year-round sport, and I get it if you're a three-sport athlete, football, wrestling, baseball, football, wrestling, track, whatever it may be. You need to be involved with an exterior club if you want to get to that next level. And if you don't, that's totally fine. Come and join the high school crew, but it is a hard sport. I will tell you that much. And that's how I got onto football, because they're in daily doubles right now. Mm-hmm. And that program, it's going to be exciting, guys. So make sure we're all out as Cougar fans supporting that first Friday Night Light. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and we kind of started at the beginning of this conversation by just saying that there's a just change in the wrestling program.
Yeah,
I mean, Jason Lovell, lots of years put in as the head coach, mm-hmm. and very well respected around the state, and was a successful wrestling himself.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember when there was a little news article about this, and it was asked, what's your relationship like with Jason Lovell? And I told him my first real memory of Coach Lovell. And it was when I was a little boy. I was probably 4, maybe even, I'd say 4 or 5 years old. And he was wrestling at Oregon State then, and he's a Cascade alumni. My dad had to have knew the family. Obviously, my dad, he graduated from Cascade. He wrestled under Tom Phillips, I think, all 4 years. And we would travel to Corvallis and see Jason wrestle. And that was my first experience with Coach Lovell. He wrestled at 197 for the Oregon State Beavers, had a very, very successful career. And I can just tell you, he made this imprint on me as a little guy. And as a little guy coming up from the club, I started at Tom Bay Mat Club as a peewee, and then we moved on to All Fates at the age of 6 and 7. I mean, it's unbelievable when you have a D1 athlete. He just got his arm raised, wrestled against another D1 athlete. They flew in. You got this big atmosphere on a Sunday afternoon, and he knows your name. He signs your shirt, and he gives you respect. And that is what has always been carried with me through my sports career, but ultimately him at Cascade. I believe my dad, when he was just fresh out of college, said, hey, if you come back to Cascade and are the coach, I'll bring my boys to Cascade. And hidden secret, I think that's how it all worked out. Then that's how we got to Cascade involved with that sports program. So there are roots with the levels, but ultimately Jason just being top notch. He's one of those coaches that he literally put everything into our sports programs. And I can attest to that working under him the last 4 years. I mean, he would call me, I'd call him, we'd bounce off each other, and he would always say, what do you think about this? Or in a way, there was a grooming to it, but ultimately there was this, he really cares about the sport of wrestling and Oregon wrestling. And then on top of that, he's got boys involved. He's got his 2 sons, Weston and wow, I'm blanking on his name. What the heck? Jack. And he's going to kill me for that. But those guys are animals, man. And where they're headed in their stage of life, what's cool is you can be a youth athlete and not get your hand raised every time, and it's okay. So if you're a parent and you just haven't gotten the results you've been looking for over the last years, that will change, by the way, if you continue on with Cascade Wrestling. We're looking to be the best, and We will be a little bit different, restructured. I mentioned all phase being my background. We're going to be bringing you guys a little bit of flavor, a little bit of taste. But when you're that young, we need to realize it's more about the athlete developing. And my dad was one of those hardcore wrestler dads. And if you know one, you know one. And I've experienced a lot in this sport. But as a wrestling parent, it's okay to not have that instant success and results. Okay, it's the longevity of the sport. And when we really break it down to the brass tacks, your relationship with these athletes is really all that matters at the end of the day. And then success will come through that. I promise you.
Yeah. And that's, the building of the relationship, that's really where it starts. It's the same with teaching also.
Yeah.
I want to kind of circle back to kind of you as the head coach. What made you decide to apply for the coaching position in the first place?
That's a great question. I would say, let's see, it was 6-7 years ago now. I'd say it's 7 years ago now. I was fresh out of high school. My cousins were out at SIO. My parents moved out there right when I graduated. And they took in my two cousins, and they were wrestling out at SIO, so I was just assistant on their staff, and I was one of those assistant wrestling coaches and occasionally would run their practices for them, give them something different to look at. But I saw Jason at the state tournament, and he comes up and he sits by me on a table, and he says, he maybe said this to a few people, who knows, but he said, Spencer, what's special, but ultimately why programs are successful is they have individuals that know the sport but have a passion for the sport that come back to the school. And I'm sure he didn't like me being out at SIO. And it was just the situation I was in, and I had the cousins there. So I wanted to help out my cousins ultimately in the long run. And he says, I want people to come back and say, you come back, I'm done after my kids are out of high school. And that was his plan, kind of like you mentioned earlier. And he's been in the coaching game for a long time, since 06, I believe, 05, 06. And him and Jake Huffman, they were BFFs. And it's sad that Jake had to go over to Prineville, but look at his success story over there. He has a top-notch program, Crook County Cowboys, and Cowwa, their wrestling program on top of that one. So that's one of those things that really influenced me, though, from 7 years ago. He has that little conversation. And this is where literally planting seeds, you look at God's promises, and 7 years later, they really do happen. And he spoke that. I consider that speaking life. And this year, he says, and this wasn't planned, he says, I found an opportunity out in Prineville, and it's going to be best for me and my family, and I'm really excited to take it and jump on it. And he just had that conversation. How do you feel about taking over the program? You are the guy for this. Because, like I said, we have talked so much off and on, and just the grooming side, in the sense, he knows my heart and where it's positioned for the program and what's best for the program. Because like I mentioned, it's not about us as coaches. Nope. And as a coaching staff, we have to get over ego, our pride, and, I was the best. It doesn't work. Get over you, as Todd White would say, and move on. And that's when I just made the choice. I asked my wife about it, because there is a time commitment behind it. And when you are the head coach out at Cascade, you're not only the head of high school. I don't think a lot of people realize this. You're the head of junior high. You're the head of the club. And then there's the management, the coaching management, and then all the background work, the administration. How well can we work with the AD and drill and that type of thing to make our program successful? Because at the end of the day, that's all we want. But that's where I just said, you know what, I can do this. And there's always been a passion of mine to have my own club, to be honest, and that's been in the background. But I look at this as that first step towards that. And really, who knows, maybe I stay with high school and just forget the club and move in someone else. But right now, I'm just looking to create a dog tough program from the ground up. And like I said, I'm head of the high school, junior high, and club, and it all starts with the club for me. That's really where 5, 7, 10 years down the road, we're going to really see that success, because it's been hard lately, to be honest, when you get the first day of practice rolling in, we're doing roll check, we're checking on physicals, making sure everybody's good to go to wrestle, and then we're teaching a a wrestling stance, or we're teaching a double leg, how, the techniques that are so simple and should be familiar with a wrestler, that simply is unnecessary. Now, I understand there's first-time athletes in every high school division sports program, and that's what we work with. That's amazing. But if we're already familiar with the program, the structure, how it works from a young age, this is going to be a cakewalk. And then the expectation of when you show up, good things happen, that's where we're going to be fire. And it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. And, that's in probably any sport that we have. My dad was the athletic director at the junior high for 10, 11 years, whatever he was there. And, it was kind of interesting having conversations with him about, which programs. Now, the junior high doesn't have all the programs that the high school has, but which ones do the varsity coaches have more of a say in, I want this person coaching or I want this person leading the program, and others who are more hands off. And again, people have different, managerial styles. People have different leading techniques, and all that's great. But it's just kind of interesting to kind of see, sometimes you see kind of the trajectory, and sometimes the problem isn't where we see it, in the high school, where not saying anything against middle school sports,
Absolutely.
but, where it ultimately doesn't matter in terms of, win-loss and what everything's doing, right? The high school is where it's like, okay, here's the state tournament and you're a state champion. Here's OSAA and all these other things that play into it. But when you build that foundation, it's just like building a house, right? You put the foundation in first because that makes the most sense. And then, you can customize kind of whatever you need to customize in the house portion of it. But yeah, it's, it's that nitty gritty down here. How are the youth that are going to be filling the program in, like you said, 5, 7, 10 years? What are they getting? And, how much of a role? You've already shared that you are going to have a pretty active role now. You want to have, maybe not going to, you want to have, that active role in those younger programs.
Yeah. And I've been penciling in a schedule and penciling coaches, right? And the commitment sides of who's willing to volunteer. Parents have been responsive when I've sent out like the message through Game Changer, because that's all I've had to work with. So if you're not on the Game Changer app and you want to be, and you're involved with the wrestling community, please sign up. But ultimately send me an email, because yes, I'll use that app, but I have 2 other ways to communicate with you guys that are going to be 10 times better. Okay. I'm really big on video form. This might even be new for Justin here with Cascade Sports Network to video a podcast. And this is what I do weekly. I make 4 different podcasts every week through our YouTube channels. And that's just a simple little portion of my business. But that's why I'm so familiar with it. And I get to have fun on this. But I really love the face-to-face interaction. But maybe you're only listening to this in your car ride, or maybe as you're doing the dishes. That is what we want. And if you're a parent and you want to be involved with our wrestling program, please reach out. I can't emphasize that enough, because I will have a select just sign-up sheet on these parent meetings of tasks and duties I just think are necessary for a successful sports program. And it's all volunteer. A lot of what we do as coaches, and I'm pretty sure you can attest to this, there's a lot of hours, a lot of background hours. That we're at the school and we're just doing janitorial duties, and you're just like, in the back of your mind, you're like, why am I doing this? But like I said, get over you. It's for the next generation. It's for your athletes. And if we can change our mindsets to a giving mindset rather than a receiving, taking mindset, then that is all I want. That is all I want as a parent. And that is ultimately going to trickle down to your son, to your daughter, because that's real role modelship. Not what you say, but what you do. So remember that one. And that's what we're going to be teaching in our room, and how to be good people. These simple life lessons that could be respect, it could be honoring, it could be just having good integrity, I think are just huge value and core assets that we still have at Cascade High School.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we spent a little while, a few minutes ago, kind of talking about, Jason's kind of influence on you. Is there anybody else that you can think of that, and this could be from an athlete perspective or a coaching perspective, or maybe it kind of is wrapped up in kind of both, but what are others? Do you have other sources of inspiration from a wrestling stance?
Absolutely. So I have a handful, and I have a lot of fun stories and testimonies I could just go down a rabbit hole with, but I'll just name point a couple of them. Firstly, I mentioned my dad earlier being that hard wrestling dad. There was more to that. It's that culture side. We talked about he's a Cascade alumni. His dad went to Cascade in, I believe, the early 60s. I believe he graduated from Cascade too. So we have that root history. But my dad was a huge influence on me, and he's worked his whole life, and he's just created this dog mentality, but this toughness about him. You look at a man, I'm sure we've all been there, but you look at a guy and you say, you know what? Today's not the day. Today is not the day to mess with this dude. And my dad,
your dad would qualify.
My dad would qualify for that.
Yep.
And he's got that stone wallness, but there's that gentleness to him as well, as a father should have. And so that's a really big role model. And I believe there's a lot of people out there that would say their dad, but he has imprinted so many life principles on me, but that work ethic side, and then how to really get the job done is so important, because as you mentioned, when you're out of high school, you're just thrown out there at times, whether it's college or the workforce, you're just thrown out there. And you're just saying, let's figure this one out. But dad has really helped me along the way. Cody, my brother, come on, I'm a younger brother to him. It's funny because now the roles reversed. I'm the head of him. He's getting used to it. You are
his boss.
I am his boss.
That's right.
And he's getting used to it. I can tell you that much. He's still fighting a little bit, because I'll send a text to him and say, hey, can you do this? Or, hey, what do you think about this? Can you get this done for me? And, he's still fighting it, but he's showing up too. And I said, dude, you're going to have to get used to this one. But Cody's a really big one. Cody Crawford, club-wise, man, I cannot, wrestling side, I could not say these names. Kevin Keeney, he's been one of the biggest influences wrestling-wise till this day, and mentality, wrestling, how to talk to athletes, but ultimately how to have a presence in a wrestling room. It's unbelievable, but a coaching presence. There's no other mentor that I believe does it better. So Kevin Keeney, head of Westland High School, congratulations to his program. He won the state champion title for the 6A division last year as the first year as their head coach, which is unbelievable.
That's awesome.
Chael Sonnen, that's a big one. Obviously, if you're not a part of the UFC world, Chael Sonnen, I had the honors of being an original all-phase guy, one of the originals in the earlier years, and he was heavily present there. Believe it or not, Lloyd Higlin, he was big. He wrestled at Portland State University, I believe, with my uncle Mark Sanders. So now I'm going to lead into Mark Sanders, ex-Cascade alumni, all-state athlete. He's a POI Player of the Year, I believe, for 1984. I think it's 1984. Big football guy, but ultimately 1 or 2 times state champ for our wrestling program. So Mark Sanders, he's heavy, and he's a big one, and he's always had that little influence, that little nudge throughout my life, because we see him on every quarter at least. There's birthday parties. There's actually being in the wrestling room. Now let's just go. Bob Buzzard. He's a big one. He's an Olympian. He lives here off of Almsville Highway, I believe, still. We got his son, Scott Buzzard. So there's another correlation, another connection. He's out at Harrisburg, is Harrisburg's AD, but heavily involved with that wrestling program. There's nothing better than having a Buzzard family in my back pocket I can call, go have dinner with, which is on the schedule, by the way, to go and talk wrestling. Jason Level's a big one, a big influence. There's a lot of names, though, that I could really share out there. Tom Vetris is a big one. He's actually my father-in-law, and he's a Cascade guy in one of the best athletes, I would say, to come out of Cascade, believe it or not. And he's just a really good influence to have in your life, whether it's business, sports, work, or just advice. And he lives on the top of the hill in Turner, and it's in our backyard. So if you don't understand, I'm really into delegating but conversation with maybe the older generation to give me advice. And I've learned that through my job. It's really important. I'm in people's houses all the time, and usually these people have experiences that are different than mine. And my job is to understand and relate and get into their situation to help them sell or buy a house. And if I can just sit for a quick second and realize what they're telling me, what they're talking to me about, the experience side, man, that is gold to me. That is amazing. And that's not even wrestling related, but it's something I get to carry with me into our wrestling room to fill up our parents and athletes with.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, a lot of those, especially the Cascade people that you named, you know, I probably don't know them as well as you do, but I know of them. You know, Mark Sanders, his daughter, Cassie,
You coached her, right? Did you coach
basketball?
her? Yeah. Okay.
And so, you know, there's all these kind of connections which make the small school community and the small school vibe that much better.
Yeah.
And so, you know, kind of looking forward, maybe there's not specific here, but, you know, you're heading into year one as, you know, the new wrestling coach. You know, what is your goal, or what are your goals? And they don't even really need to be, you know, maybe it's not like performance per se, but you know, what would, you know, if you can give me one or two, or maybe you have more and you've, you know, thought about this a little bit. You know, what are those? Yeah.
So a big question I've been not wrestling with, but wanting to actually perform on is my influence and who I am in the room. Because that's a big one. Who you are and who you present is what usually you're going to be remembered by, but imprinted by in the athletes. So that's a big one. And to answer your question, though, goal-wise, I'm really big on the visualization and the mental aspect of it. So making not the lie that you can, but actually you believing that you can, you will, you are, rather than negative. I only want positivity, because as soon as that negativity side gets going, it's a trickle effect. And I've seen it in multiple programs, and I've actually seen it in this one in the past. And that is dead to me. And everything we do is in a upgoing action, in a positivity light in a way. So the presence we have in ourselves, I think ultimately is going to be my number one goal. And that's influenced through everybody involved with my coaching staff. We are here to help the kids, honor the kids, teach the kids. And through that, it's going to trickle down into success. Success will take care of itself if we do all these little things right. And there's a reason why we've had the best coaching staff year over year. Like I mentioned, we've had the Buzzards. We've had Shane Webster, for instance. I mean, come on. Oregon's last NCAA champion. He's in our backyard, guys, and we talked to him. He's going to come in and run some amazing wrestling camps in this next upcoming year. Remember, Oregon's last NCAA. We mentioned NCAA is the highest collegiate level you can get here. I mean, he's a champion in the year, I believe, 2006 or 2001, 2004, that era. But he's in our back pocket, and he is willing and wanting to help, and that's just all through relationship. But the goal-wise, bring that positive influence, but ultimately make these kids have a great experience while being connected with our room. I just think that's the thing they're going to carry with them outside of high school. That's going to matter. That create them to be good people.
Yeah. And, you know, it's looking at kind of year one and truthfully, the Cascade Sports Network in itself, where you're hearing this, whether it's social media or, you know, maybe it's a spliced piece of this interview somewhere else. You know, the Cascade Sports Network is in its infancy, right. You know, and, you know, getting involvement that way. You know, we put out kind of a targeted sponsored ad on Facebook.
I saw that. Would share that real quick. Share that for the audience. So let's pitch that. Yeah.
So the Cascade Sports Network, in kind of a motto, I suppose, is just to give students real life experience in different aspects of broadcasting that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise. So, you know, obviously we're on the microphones right now. Okay. A lot of kids or a lot of people don't want to be on the microphone. There are so many other things that go behind the scenes. I mean, if you've ever, you know, watched an NFL game when at the end of the game, when they're rattling off all these people, you know, you have two people, maybe three people, if you include the sideline reporter, that are behind the mics and on camera. There are 10 times or more people. There's people in the production truck. There's people running, you know, microphones and cameras. There's, the producer that's trying to keep this all together. There's graphics people. I mean, there's all these different things. And obviously we don't have all those things dialed in quite yet. The more we add,
the more experience too, you're going to have success with. And let me just share this though. What you were doing when I first saw you're bringing a sports podcast, marketing, whatever, to our sports network, football, volleyball, girls, men's athletes. I just thought that was amazing because I'm a guy, I didn't go to college, and I think outside of the box though, because I'm a visionary, and what I see is a very, very good vision on what you're trying to do. And this is amazing because what we're doing online is unbelievable, and everything is reached online, the internet, podcast, broadcast, whatever you want to call it. But there are people that can't actually make events, and there are people actually that are listening to this that's going to better our athletes, especially if they want to be in college. Tune in on your broadcast when there's a live sport event, and it could be a college scout from Indiana, who knows? And he's like, oh, that name, it keeps getting brought up. And it's so important though, because you're actually sharing what's happening in front of you. And I mean, ultimately that's so important though. You're an influence on Cascade, and there's more than just this little town of Turner, Almsville, Marion. We have 50 other states. We have a whole world that can hear this, and that's the power of the internet, and it's unbelievable. So thank you for what you're doing, by the way. It takes effort and a full team, like you said, to make all things go round. And if you guys just haven't appreciated it quite yet, next time you see Justin Lowder, just shake his hand and say thank you. Seriously. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I'm changing up some things and hopefully get more students involved, because obviously I have no professional experience in broadcasting. This is solely like, the origin story of it, I'll try to sum it up.
Yeah, sum it up for me. How'd you get into this?
So Jesse Legner his son Connor will be a senior next year.
I think he wrestles.
He does wrestle. Quinn Legner, I believe, wrestled and also played football. And then Gavin Legner, his other son that came through, he's been a Cascade guy for a long time. And so this was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And another realtor, actually, Don Sturgeon, Don and Jesse were talking about, well, how can we were all kind of surprised that with the success that a lot of our athletics programs across the board have had, that no one has attempted to, broadcast this or somehow, connect perhaps the larger community to these events that are happening. And so I was like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. Like, let me know how that goes. Because Don, I think, was running the scoreboard at the time for football games. And Don and Jesse was doing the PA announcing, actually.
You guys had your little booth team.
We had the booth. So sometimes it's where it starts. Like you just happen to be at the same place at the same time, and you talk about these things.
There's interest in it on all parties, and it just happens.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So, nothing really happens. So the next year, same thing. I'm running scoreboard. Jesse's doing the PA. And I kind of asked him, I said, hey, how's that thing going? How's putting together the broadcast? And he goes, well, yeah. Haven't really talked about it in a while, whatever. And, I've had kind of a year to kind of think about like, oh, this is a really good idea. And so, I probably consume sports differently than most people. I kind of have a more all around. I don't know a lot of facts about, the NFL, the NBA or whatever, but I know a little bit about everything.
Right.
And I kind of like you, I just love Cascade. And so, he was like, well, yeah, it's not really anything. And I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I said, I want to make this a thing, and I want to make it an elective class. And I want to teach kids and basically teach myself as I'm doing it, what are these things that go into making successful broadcasts? What are these things, that we can do, on social media? Like even after this, I'm going to be splicing up audio and
Yes,
whatever.
we
And
are.
I want to have some of these clips prepared for, our first football broadcast, which I hope will be the first road game, which is Labor Day weekend on Friday, I think, at 7 in Baker City.
Which, keep this in mind, audience, that's a commitment. Baker City's how far away?
That's probably a 5.5 hour drive if you're in a car.
And this man is going to be going there for a sports broadcast that, by the way, I don't think you're really paid for. Are you?
I get a stipend, so I am paid for it. But it gets a little bit because, I'm doing this for the kids. I want kids to do this. Now, I'll admit that, when I get to do this, it'd be great if a kid came and was doing the interview, and that's the goal. And maybe that'll be later on, especially, who knows, middle of August, kids aren't in school, who knows.
Yeah.
But when I get to be the one to kind of do it and broadcast too, I like it. So
absolutely,
you talked about that earlier, right? You have to enjoy really what you're doing. And, same with teaching. When you're teaching something and you kind of get that aha moment, or a kid does something during a broadcast, and afterwards they're like, man, I really like that. It's something that not a lot of schools have.
Yeah.
I was looking at it, and Wilsonville High School, they do kind of a one student broadcast, but it's very, nothing against being having
totally
a basic thing, but they're getting that experience. And sometimes it is just, we're going to jump in and do the game. Football broadcasts, we've been just doing those longer. Where the pandemic was mostly negative in a lot of aspects, it actually was probably a benefit for starting this, because people didn't have access to the games. There was only a limited number of people. You had to have tickets to get in, and all that other stuff.
That would have benefited everybody in the community that wanted to be a part of whatever program you're broadcasting that day and time.
Yeah. And, looking at football broadcasts we did last year versus the ones that we did during the pandemic, it's a night and day difference, just equipment wise and system. But you're constantly improving. And, that's really the main thing that,
it really all started in a booth, though.
Yeah.
You guys were just talking up there at a football game. You, Don, another individual, Jesse, I believe his name was.
Yep.
And, hey, how can we, start a broadcast? See, these things are straight visions, and you speak them, that's a seed. Now look at this. 4 or 5 years later, you are in my house. You're broadcasting remotely. Yep. You're going to Baker City here in the next couple weeks, possibly. Yep. That is unbelievable. And a lot of this time, you mentioned, you might be paid a little stipend, but this is volunteer. Like you said, you're going to go home and make edits. I'm going to go do the same thing. And this is just because we want to bring you guys, the community. You're tuning into Cascade Sports Network for a reason. The community wants this type of stuff. They want to be informed. And it's our job to let you know about it. Because if you don't know, you're never told the truth. That's my goal.
Yeah. And, the first couple of years I did this, it was just, I want this to be it. And I'm not a title person. I'm not a money person. No one goes into teaching for the money. No one goes into coaching for the money.
Yeah.
We obviously had zero conversation about, hey, I got to get that coaching paycheck, because that's not why people go into these roles. It's everything that you spoke about with relationships and with kids. And so, the success of the Cascade Sports Network will obviously grow as more kids become involved. I'm kind of altering my classroom piece a little bit, and hopefully to encourage more students to be involved with at least the home football broadcast. The away ones get a little tough, especially if people are in my elective class and they're doing cross country. I'll give a shout out to Jacob Gailey. He'll be a senior this year. Has done cross country, but he has been one of the 2 people who have been doing the football broadcasts. Scott Christensen, another quick shout out. He graduated last year. And so really we're looking for another, preferably student, to jump in with Jacob and call those games.
Which I totally think you can find. There's so many people out there, but I feel like the way our world is and the way it's shifting and directed is your classroom, it's going to blow up. It's going to be like you have to stop accepting kids into your elective class. I don't know if it's full already or not, but you could really be a big media influencer. That's a really big pillar to have right now, is if you can connect your sports network with social media, TikTok, whatever you want, but actually make it more of a video form as well. You might not be doing this, but another student can be. And I just think you can have huge influences that are free, by the way. It's like the cheapest way to market and have really great success with it while gaining experience for students. Because do you think Cascade, they're not lacking, but they don't really have a class quite yet for media influence? Because I don't know that quite yet. They don't?
No. I mean, there could be, I mean, I guess mine would be the closest just because, we experience things with, they have to create their own podcast, and they, a lot of it has been like the sport of their choice. This year we're going to shift a little bit more to like focusing on Cascade Sports.
Okay.
And so the goal is, and again, goals are nice, but you have to have the buy-in, before, in order to make those goals a reality,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And that's my focus too. You got to get people bought in. How can you not sell them a topic, but want them to want the topic?
Right. And so, the goal is that there is something that the community at large can consume about every sport. So, unfortunately, I don't have the elective class during the spring. Okay. The goal would be is that there would be enough kids that gain some sort of interest in something. If they don't like podcasting because they don't like to talk into the microphone, maybe they get into, sports writing, right? And, again, I'm an amateur at all this, right? So,
hey, what's cool? You just walked into my house today. I had these mics set up. I have a camera pointing at us, and we've just been talking for over an hour or something. How cool is that, though? It's not like we're Joe Rogan or anything, but like this is fun. This is community. This is communication. We don't have our phones out. We're literally talking. And is this pretty easy for you? You say you're an amateur, but I would consider you to just be a pro at this point. You're doing terrific, and this is fun. This is not a job.
No, and that's the thing I like. And, not to plug a different company, but, I happen to be wearing a shirt from Play by Play Sports Broadcasting Camps, and I actually co-direct a camp in Seattle on the University of Washington campus. Okay. And, that's more, obviously it's in the title, it's more sports broadcasting. So it is behind the microphones a little bit, but, they were kind of the ones that I looked at to even give me a starting point, because I did that for a professional development opportunity. Found them online, and Lisa Iverson, who's now the principal at Turner Elementary,
amazing woman. Love Lisa.
Yeah, she was behind this 100%, and truthfully, a lot of the equipment that we have and had was just purchased because there's the Measure 98 money for CTE programs, and it fell right into those baskets that we kind of that we wanted. And so that was honestly at least the logistics part of how this kind of started. And so all these different kind of things kind of came together at the right time. Okay. And the play-by-play, they've only had the one adult camp, because the camps are targeted for kids ages 10 to 18.
You're in Seattle, the sports broadcasting. Tell us more. You got funded, and off you go.
So at the time, Lisa Iverson was our CTE coordinator, and just kind of talked with her about this vision that I had, that I wanted to ultimately broadcast varsity sporting events. Okay. And the ultimate goal for the program is that every varsity sporting event will at least be streamed online. Okay, for free. And that's really what I want.
That's my goal too for my program, is wrestling wise, it has to be streamed online, whether it's a Facebook Live video or another form. It's got to be live, and I want you to be a part of it, okay?
Yeah.
We haven't had many home duels, home gyms. I've talked to our cheerleading gal, amazing cheerleading coach, by the way. I've been getting to know her a little bit, and if you have kids who are influenced into cheer, you got one that, honestly, she wants the best for the program. Kind of like me, she was a club gal, and she's wanting to bring that to Cascade. And from what I hear, there's really good stuff happening with our cheer program, but I want them involved on our dual nights on a Wednesday or Thursday night, black light under the mat. Get that gym a-roaring because we've missed that. But you want to broadcast every sport athletic department.
Yeah. So, the goal is now, obviously, there's more production in a broadcast, but, there are, people have family members everywhere, right? So, it's really special when, you have maybe family from out of state that can come in and watch a contest, but it's cool to be connected to maybe some grandparents that live in, Vancouver, Washington, or you have family in, Texas or something like that where, maybe we're not doing a full on broadcast for a boys soccer game, a girls soccer game, or, maybe a wrestling meet or any of those, but, the family members community, obviously, but family members can still be connected and they can tune into those, tune into those things so they can still watch their, their friends' kids or their nephews and nieces.
Totally.
And, that's the goal. And, hopefully the goal would then be after that to, get student buy-in where it's like, okay, I have one or two people that know soccer. Like that's their sport. And maybe they do want to create a little bit of a broadcast and they can do that. And I actually had a little bit of an opportunity. So there's a company or a league, I should say, sports league called the Women's Football Alliance.
Okay.
And Salem has a team. They're called the Capital Pioneers. And I was actually approached by one of my colleagues, Mike Putnam, who was the coach there for a year and then helped out, I think, another year or two. But one of their things, they wanted to be able to broadcast the games. And so they thought kind of partnering with us would, give kids experiences. It didn't really work out like that, but, it was a chance for us to, I found out through them that they have, 3 different places that they stream their games, figured out what software they use. So, when we transition into video, once our NFHS contract expires with the Pixelot systems that a lot of schools bought during the pandemic, so they had options for the viewing public.
Are we still using that for 2024?
Yeah, the company that sold that had all the schools sign like a 5-year agreement, and in the agreement they have exclusive video rights.
And how many are we actually videoing our sporting events?
So there's only 2 cameras. There's one at the football field, which really only captures football games. Okay. And then there's one in the gym, the main gymnasium. So any JV.
But it's one camera.
How
was the quality, you think?
Not great.
We're not throwing anybody on the bus.
No, absolutely not.
But it's real.
And
it's something to learn off of.
It's a fully automated system. So, there are glitches that happen. There were multiple times last year for basketball games where it was in fact where people's, family members from out of state wanted to watch and the camera system goes down. Well, it's fully automated, so we have no control over that. So we have to reach out to the company and then hope that they can get it fixed by the time the game happens. And it
makes it a struggle when there's a outside party doing the stuff that you honestly don't have much control over. So that's really cool, though. You're moving towards more video, possibly with broadcasting, and for God's sake, maybe get over that contract. I mean,
we certainly won't be renewing it. I've had several conversations.
5 years is a long time.
Yeah.
And probably a lot of money for that. I mean.
Oh, it was. Yeah. So again, not throwing anyone under the bus here, but they discounted the cameras. They severely discounted the cameras, but the school had to agree that all the revenue made from subscriptions for the first 3 years of the contract were going to go solely to the company. And so now the last 2 years, which I think was maybe this year, next year, or maybe it was last year and this year, maybe we're nearing the end of it. But then they cut a revenue check to the school. But, that's not really what I want to do. I kind of mentioned the sports network earlier. I threw out kind of on Facebook, the, partnership opportunities.
Yeah.
And the reason behind, well, there's multiple reasons behind that, but, the kids don't have to pay for anything. Okay. So, I provide all the equipment, obviously.
Awesome.
The program, the sports network program, anything that, we have to pay for minibuses to take them for fuel and whatever else, that money goes to that. Obviously if it's a far enough road game, we stop for food. It's all these things that kind of get wrapped up that you don't see,
right.
And you don't realize that goes towards. The equipment we buy, we don't use all that often. So whether we have to upgrade equipment or buy new equipment,
which is always,
it is what it is.
Always revolving. There's new equipment every month. I feel like even for our setup, I mean, I could be buying thousands of dollars worth of things. So luckily this does the trick.
So it goes to that. And, one of the things I want to be able to incorporate at some point this year is that our kids are, for whatever, partnerships that we get, I want the kids to make advertisements. Those are things that, it's going to be with the equipment that we have. It's probably not going to be state of the art equipment, but, it gives the kids the experience of, overlaying, how does video look like? What sound or what music would be best to put with this? Or is there a part where that doesn't need music? And how do you, especially our broadcasts right now are audio only, mainly because, we're mainly football and basketball. We did a couple audio broadcasts of volleyball last year. I actually did the one playoff game to get to the tournament, and then we broadcasted all the tournament games, which was cool.
Shout out to Coach Williams. I mean, they're going through tryouts this week, and I'm excited for that program, man. She has been building that thing. She's a rock star, 15 years strong, I believe. I saw a post yesterday.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
And they have
That's what it's all about.
Almost 50 athletes trying out. I mean, it is...
They're booming. They're growing. And that's where the direction is for our wrestling program as well. I mean, we have over 120 club athletes that signed up last year. We're looking to have that many in returning, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And I'm structuring a whole new schedule for these families and our athletes to participate in Monday through Thursday at that younger age level. So we're going to be looking at parent meetings here in September. And the first week of August, that first Monday, will be our first practice as it's penciled in the schedule right now. So stay tuned.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, I guess we'll wrap it up on this. We talked about, I alluded to earlier, just the success of the programs, the wrestling program. We just mentioned volleyball. The basketball programs have been very successful. We just had, the boys basketball back-to-back state champs.
Man, I love it. Yeah.
The girls program is, again, longtime head coach Mark Stevens, stepped down before last season. And so there was some change there. There's now some change wrestling program. And, Christina, Coach Williams has, several years in the volleyball there. So I'll get you out here on this, Spencer. What would you've mentioned a few things about, getting kids in and supporting the kids, and, what would be kind of your, I don't want to say use the word pitch, but I can't think of a better word. So what would your, pitch be to, like, hey, come into our program?
Will come into our program. So remember this quote from me: anyone, anywhere, anytime. If you want that in your life, then this is the program for you. We are going to be dog tough. Black Attack is back. We are getting new uniforms, and that's what's going to represent. You earn everything you get. And that's just part of that culture that we're going to be creating in the room. And like I mentioned earlier, wrestling, it's a dog tough sport. It's not a fun thing to practice with, but the community and camaraderie outside of the wrestling walls, there's nothing else like it. And then when it's competition day, getting that arm raised, that's all that matters, right? That's what we're training to compete and be number one for. At the end of the day, though, I want this to be your visualization. Anyone, anywhere, anytime. And that comes to that vision, that dream part when you're laying in your bed and what do you want to do in your life? I can do anything, anywhere, anytime. And that has been big pillars in my life. And that ties into the honor, the respect, the culture, everything. And creating good people is my number one priority. But if you're looking to be a wrestler, you're going to be dog tough. And we're going to dance for 6 minutes. Hopefully it's less and you pin somebody. But, man, I'm just so excited to take this program that's already successful to new heights and new limits that the glass ceiling. I mean, we're going to break through it. And it's only going to be a matter of, maybe even this year, but short time. Because what we are bringing in as a coaching staff, myself, Cody Crawford, Jake Patterson, Kane Nixon, as the head high school guys, it's just going to trickle down. And all these guys know what they're doing. And like I mentioned earlier, those pillars in my life, the Keeneys in the world, the Buzzards, my brother, Oregon State, college guys, these college coaches that we have connections with. Nolan Harris is a big one out at Corbin University right now. He's new. He's just like me, first year in the program. We want to partner, and that word partner that you're using with your sports broadcast is super, super familiar but relatable to you guys, our audience. How can you partner with us? How can you be involved with these programs? And that's what it's all about. I want you guys here. And if you're viewing this video, listening to this video, or this podcast, that's I think our vision for our athletic program is to partner with the community. And there's nothing better to do than sit down, talk about it, and then give you guys the information. So anyone, anywhere, anytime, visualize that, and you're going to be a better person at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I know, I don't know everything about, all the process. I'm kind of the one, if people have questions that they ask the sports network, whether it's on social media or anywhere else, it kind of gets filtered through me. I'm all for, I will find out answers for you. A lot of the coaches I either have worked with for a while or I've known or I know personally. We'll get those answers. That as a sports network, if we can kind of overall kind of summarize what I want or what the vision is of the program is to connect the community to our sports programs. We have strong following.
Okay. We're back. The camera was about to die, so I had to plug it in.
Perfect.
We're going to wind this down, though, okay, in the next 15 minutes, 10 minutes at least. Yep. And let's gear towards that. But you're in Seattle, the sports broadcasting. Tell us more. You got funded, and off you go.
So at the time, Lisa Iverson was our CTE coordinator, and, just kind of talked with her about this vision that I had that I, wanted to ultimately broadcast varsity sporting events. Okay. And the ultimate goal for the program is that every varsity sporting event will at least be streamed online. Okay, for free. And that's really what
that's my goal too for my program is wrestling wise, it has to be streamed online, whether it's a Facebook Live video or another form. Mm-hmm. It's got to be live, and I want you to be a part of it, okay? Yeah. We haven't had many home duels, home gyms. I've talked to our cheerleading gal, amazing cheerleading coach, by the way. I've been getting to know her a little bit, and if you have kids who are influenced into cheer, you got one that, honestly, she wants the best for the program. Kind of like me. She was a club gal, and she's wanting to bring that to Cascade. And from what I hear, there's really good stuff happening with our cheer program, but I want them involved on our dual nights on a Wednesday or Thursday night, black light under the mat. Get that gym a-roaring because we've missed that. But you want to broadcast every sport athletic department.
Yeah, so, the goal is now, obviously, there's more production in a broadcast, but, there are, people have family members everywhere, right? So, it's really special when, you have maybe family from out of state that can come in and watch a contest, but it's cool to be connected to maybe some grandparents that live in, Vancouver, Washington, or you have family in, Texas or something like that where, maybe we're not doing a full-on broadcast for a boys soccer game, a girls soccer game, or, maybe a wrestling meet or any of those, but, the family members community, obviously, but family members can still be connected and they can tune into those, tune into those things so they can still watch their, their friends' kids or their nephews and nieces. Totally. And, that's the goal. And, hopefully the goal would then be after that to, get student buy-in where it's like, okay, I have one or two people that know soccer. Like that's their sport. And maybe they do want to create a little bit of a broadcast and they can do that. And I actually had a little bit of an opportunity. So there's a company or a league, I should say, sports league called the Women's Football Alliance.
Okay.
And Salem has a team. They're called the Capital Pioneers. And I was actually approached by one of my colleagues, Mike Putnam, who was the coach there for a year and then helped out, I think, another year or two. But one of their things, they wanted to be able to broadcast the games. And so they thought kind of partnering with us would, give kids experiences. It didn't really work out like that, but, it was a chance for us to, I found out through them that they have, 3 different places that they stream their games, figured out what software they use. So, when we transition into video, once our NFHS contract expires with the Pixelot systems that a lot of schools bought during the pandemic, so they had options for the viewing public.
Mm-hmm. Are we still using that for 2024?
Yeah, the company that sold that had all the schools sign like a 5-year agreement, and in the agreement they have exclusive video rights.
And how many are we actually videoing our sporting events?
So there's only 2 cameras. There's one at the football field, which really only captures football games, and then there's one in the gym, the main gymnasium. So any JV,
but it's one camera.
How
was the quality, you think?
Not great.
Okay. We're not throwing anybody on the bus.
No, absolutely not.
But it's real.
And
something to learn off of.
It's a fully automated system. So, there are glitches that happen. There were multiple times last year for basketball games where the camera, where it was in fact where people's, family members from out of state wanted to watch, and the camera system goes down. Well, it's fully automated, so we have no control over that. So we have to reach out to the company and then hope that they can get it fixed by the time the game happens. And it
makes it a struggle when there's a outside party doing the stuff that you honestly don't have much control over. So that's really cool, though. You're moving towards more video possibly with broadcasting, and for God's sake, maybe get over that contract. I mean,
we certainly won't be renewing it. I've had several conversations.
5 years is a long time.
Yeah.
And probably a lot of money for that. I mean.
Oh, it was. Yeah. So again, not throwing anyone under the bus here, but they discounted the cameras. They severely discounted the cameras, but the school had to agree that all the revenue made from subscriptions for the first 3 years of the contract were going to go solely to the company. And so now the last 2 years, which I think was maybe this year, next year, or maybe it was last year and this year, maybe we're nearing the end of it, but then they cut a revenue check to the school. But, that's not really what I want to do. We kind of mentioned the sports network earlier. I threw out kind of on Facebook the partnership opportunities.
Yeah.
And the reason behind, there's multiple reasons behind that, but the kids don't have to pay for anything. Okay, so I provide all the equipment, obviously.
Awesome.
The program, the sports network program, anything that we have to pay for minibuses to take them for fuel and whatever else, that money goes to that. Obviously if it's a far enough road game, we stop for food. It's all these things that kind of get wrapped up that you don't see, right. You don't realize that goes towards. The equipment we buy, we don't use all that often. So whether we have to upgrade equipment or buy new equipment,
which is always,
it is what it is.
Always revolving. There's new equipment every month. I feel like even for our setup, I mean, I could be buying thousands of dollars worth of things. So luckily this does the trick.
So it goes to that. And, one of the things I want to be able to incorporate at some point this year is that our kids are, for whatever, partnerships that we get, I want the kids to make advertisements. Those are things that, it's going to be with the equipment that we have. It's probably not going to be state of the art equipment, but it gives the kids the experience of overlaying, how does video look like? What sound or what music would be best to put with this? Or is there a part where it doesn't need music? And how do you, especially our broadcasts right now are audio only, mainly because, we're mainly football and basketball. We did a couple audio broadcasts of volleyball last year. I actually did the one playoff game to get to the tournament, and then we broadcasted all the tournament games, which was cool.
Shout out to Coach Williams. I mean, they're going through tryouts this week, and I'm excited for that program, man. She has been building that thing. She's a rock star, 15 years strong, I believe. I saw a post yesterday.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
And they have
That's what it's all about.
Almost 50 athletes trying out. I mean, it is...
They're booming. They're growing. And that's where the direction is for our wrestling program as well. I mean, we have over 120 club athletes that signed up last year. We're looking to have that many in returning, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And I'm structuring a whole new schedule for these families and our athletes to participate in Monday through Thursday at that younger age level. So we're going to be looking at parent meetings here in September. And the first week of August, that first Monday, will be our first practice as it's penciled in the schedule right now. So stay tuned.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, I guess we'll wrap it up on this. We talked about, I alluded to earlier, just the success of the programs, the wrestling program. We just mentioned volleyball. The basketball programs have been very successful. We just had, the boys basketball back-to-back state champs.
Man, I love it. Yeah.
The girls program is, again, longtime head coach Mark Stevens, stepped down before last season. And so there was some change there. There's now some change wrestling program. And, Christina, Coach Williams has, several years in the volleyball there. So I'll get you out here on this, Spencer. What would you've mentioned a few things about, getting kids in and supporting the kids, and what would be kind of your I don't want to say use the word pitch, but I can't think of a better word. So what would your pitch be to, like, hey, come into our program?
Will come into our program. So remember this quote from me: anyone, anywhere, anytime. If you want that in your life, then this is the program for you. We are going to be dog tough. Black Attack is back. We are getting new uniforms, and that's what's going to represent. You earn everything you get. And that's just part of that culture that we're going to be creating in the room. And like I mentioned earlier, wrestling, it's a dog tough sport. It's not a fun thing to practice with, but the community and camaraderie outside of the wrestling walls, there's nothing else like it. And then when it's competition day, getting that arm raised, that's all that matters, right? That's what we're training to compete and be number one for. At the end of the day, though, I want this to be your visualization. Anyone, anywhere, anytime. And that comes to that vision, that dream part when you're laying in your bed and what do you want to do in your life? I can do anything, anywhere, anytime. And that has been big pillars in my life. And that ties into the honor, the respect, the culture, everything. And creating good people is my number one priority. But if you're looking to be a wrestler, you're going to be dog tough. And we're going to dance for 6 minutes. Hopefully it's less and you pin somebody. But, man, I'm just so excited to take this program that's already successful to new heights and new limits that the glass ceiling. I mean, we're going to break through it. And it's only going to be a matter of, maybe even this year, but short time. Because what we are bringing in as a coaching staff, myself, Cody Crawford, Jake Patterson, Kane Nixon, as the head high school guys, it's just going to trickle down. And all these guys know what they're doing. And like I mentioned earlier, those pillars in my life, the Keeneys in the world, the Buzzards, my brother, Oregon State, college guys, these college coaches that we have connections with. Nolan Harris is a big one out at Corbin University right now. He's new. He's just like me, first year in the program. We want to partner, and that word partner that you're using with your sports broadcast is super, super familiar, but relatable to you guys, our audience. How can you partner with us? How can you be involved with these programs? And that's what it's all about. I want you guys here. And if you're viewing this video, listening to this video, or this podcast, that's I think our vision. for our athletic program is to partner with the community. And there's nothing better to do than sit down, talk about it, and then give you guys the information. So anyone, anywhere, anytime. Visualize that, and you're going to be a better person at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I know, I don't know everything about, all the process. I'm kind of the one, if people have questions that they ask the sports network, whether it's on social media or anywhere else, it kind of gets filtered through me. I'm all for, I will find out answers for you. A lot of the coaches I either have worked with for a while or I've known or I know personally. We'll get those answers. That as a sports network, if we can kind of overall kind of summarize what I want or what the vision is of the program is to connect the community to our sports programs. We have strong followings because of the success in the community and the intimacy of our community. But ultimately we just want to bring more. We want to have more content to consume. We want you to hear things that, when you have, little clips of interviews, where you see these, ESPNs and these
Right.
Sports Illustrateds and these other things, like we want to be able to do that too.
Let's get a microphone out there and seriously
exactly
go
right.
interview a wrestler that just took down the number one guy in the state from who knows where, and it's inside our own house, and the gym's packed. We're going crazy. We got Cougar in their suit again. Where's the mascot, man? Where's the school pride? Have you been? How's it feel in our high school lately?
Yeah, I mean, I would say school pride, at least, for games has been all right, for events, but, overall school pride's probably been down if you look kind of across the board. And so, that's one of the things that we can do to help. We just put in, last year we got a video board installed in the gym.
Yeah.
That takes kind of a whole other crew of people to do outside of the broadcasts. So, I'm hoping, especially for, volleyball, as obviously they'll already kind of be playing by the time we get kids back, but, home wrestling matches, basketball games, hopefully we can get.
Which I've got my photography crew on it. I mean, like I said, I'm in real estate. This is my business, the media side of things. And so the promotion is everything. And I got the green screen. I got the photographer. I just got to press the button and get all my guys in there. We're going to have a media day. And I plan to be using that billboard, that beautiful, beautiful Megatron, basically, in our gym, our new gymnasium. And if we're not using that correctly, it's a shame. So I'm going to be stepping up and making sure we can host, we can bring in a crowd, we can entertain. You ever watch the LA basketball club, the Lakers, back in the 70s, the 80s? How can we make it Showtime worthy and attract the people? And, wrestling, it's one of those sports. I just feel like it's been not glamorous. We need to sexify it. We need to make sure it's approachable, get the cheerleaders involved, get the Cougar involved, get our student body involved. How do you think about this? We do a takedown tournament. Winner in front of the whole school. Takedowns only. So you're not getting, really needing wrestling skill. We just need to bring somebody down and get around them. And then in the front of the whole school, we have one-on-one tournament, the champion, and they get bragging rights, man. You don't. In Oregon State, there was a story. Tom Vetcher still told me this one. The football team would come in for the wrestling team, and there would be a takedown tournament every year. Tom made it to the finals, and there was this big guy, Orndorff, I believe was his last name, who knows. And Tom, I think, lost. But ultimately, my whole point is, a football player, no wrestling experience, comes in and he just dominates and takes you down. That is a competitor. That is what an athlete should be able to do. And I always encourage you, get into other sports. If you're a full-time wrestler, great. Keep going to practice. Get into football. Get into baseball. Get into track. We need that in our community especially. But you as an athlete, that's what's important here. But I mean, how fun would that be? Having a tournament, a little takedown tournament, getting the finals in front of the whole school under the light and demonstrating what a wrestling event could look like.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And, a lot of times when we talk about sports, the sports that we talk about tend to be the more popular ones in the country. So you have football, NFL's the number one viewership, right?
Yeah.
You have basketball. Well, you have the NBA. And, these things that are maybe more on a national scale, marketable, but you can watch wrestling
Totally.
on, ESPN Plus now has like just about everything you can do. And so, no, that's awesome. And anything to show, the students something new, the student body something new, I think is a good idea.
Yeah, and using the board on the side, you can direct their attention, do the breakdown of wrestling. You go to an Oregon State duel, they used to play on their Megatron, the breakdown of wrestling, the simplicities, how the scoring system works. And it's in a cool, nice video that is... there's music involvement. There's a capturing to the audience about it, so we could direct the student body to it, educate them, but ultimately see who's tougher than the rest.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's just a thought. It's not going to happen until I bring it up to the board. But
that's right. That's right. The powers that be.
I'm a visionary.
Hey, I'll say it was very good talking with you. Obviously, we've known each other a long time, but to sit down as kind of certainly the first video interview, but kind of the first interview of the season has been great. And so I appreciate your time and obviously your hospitality here in your house. And I look forward to keeping up with how the season goes. And I'm sure this won't be the last time we talk this year. Hope it isn't anyway. And I'm sure when winter time rolls around, when I have kids that need some information, some statistics, some, maybe some athlete shout outs.
Absolutely.
We'll be in touch, and then hopefully those things will be making their way out for the public to consume on social media or perhaps, YouTube channel or anything like that. So.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, I want to thank you for doing this. Cascade Sports Network, it's a must for our sports programs, but for our student body, for you to grow that class and then maybe even create that media influence I was mentioning on. I mean, this is such an unbelievable time, and what you're doing is so good. And it's actually one of the most influential things I think that's happening for our sports. So the more you're involved, the better. You're going to get text messages. You're going to get calls from me. And, that's just how I am. I'm going to keep poking you until things are really transparent and happening, because I got a lot of room to grow. Just because we have somewhat success. I mean, we haven't won a state title since 2012. That is the expectation now, winning at the high school level especially. There's no reason we shouldn't be. We got the best facilities, the best coaching staff, but what we got to do is change that culture and mindset. When I show up, everything changes. We are here to dominate. We are here to take over. We are the best. And that's all part of that positivity direction we're going to be going as the program continues. So thank you for being here today, and it's been a pleasure. I mean, we're probably here for over an hour and a half. This is a long podcast. Is this the longest maybe talk you've ever had?
For sure.
This is going to be fun, and I'm excited to see what you can create, if it's small clips or whatever. But let's get to this. 2024 is going to be an amazing year. And not just for the wrestling program, but for you and what you've been involved with and touching out at Cascade. So whatever you're touching, let it be released of beautifulness. And
that's right.
It's seriously growth. Yeah. And that's all we want. That's really all we want.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And again, we'll all be kind of following along here and all rooting for you and your athletes and all your coaches this year. Again, the information, to get registered is cascadecougars.com. Then there's a button that says register my athlete. And then I think from there you can kind of filter out by sport and do that. Again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to Cascade Sports Network on social media. If you write a note or whatever it's called on Facebook, it goes to my email so I can figure out answers for you. Otherwise, just call the school office and talk to our athletic secretary. Robin is great, super helpful, and she'll be able to have all those answers there too. So again, Spencer, thank you for chatting and your hospitality here. So again, Cascade Wrestling Coach Spencer Crawford. I'm Justin Lowder from the Cascade Sports Network, and we'll see you next time.